Daryle Lamont Jenkins, welcome to the Mueller Time Podcast, man.
Morning or afternoon as it is now.
Yeah, Daryle, you're based in Philadelphia, right?
Not
Oh
anymore.
no.
We just moved back home, so to
Oh,
speak. We started in a town called New Brunswick, New Jersey. That's where Rutgers University is, and basically where I grew up. And we, after about 13 years of hanging out in Philly, we just over the past month or so moved back here to New Brunswick.
I'm
So,
from New Jersey, man.
whereabouts?
Montclair.
Montclair. Okay, so you're further up.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool, cool. Yeah, so we're back. We're back in my home state, and it sucks because I have no gun laws that are compatible to my line of work. So,
Well, New Jersey is one of the strictest states. That's my understanding with
yeah,
firearms.
yeah. Hey, I'm pro gun. I'm all about firearms, but I had to come home.
Mhm,
I
of
had to
course.
come home because there's a lot of stuff that's going on here that I wanted to be on the ground for. Just like pretty much the reason why we moved operations to Philly in the first place. We saw a lot of things going on down there, and we wanted to take care of it. We go to where the work is. So
Since
I'm
you
back
brought up,
home.
oh, got a little echo there. Since you brought up the issue of firearms, I'm just curious. Since that's a big issue in this country, and of course with the thing that happened in New Zealand. I mean, and
Right.
where do you stand on the whole Second Amendment thing in general?
I sound like a right winger when it comes to
No,
that
no, no.
kind
I'm
of
just
thing.
curious.
It really does. I really do because I'm pretty much I'm I believe in the right to keep and bear arms, the
Mm,
same way that any other gun nut. I mean, I'm not a nut about it, but
sure.
by the same token, I do believe that we have to maintain a healthy right to keep and bear arms. I
Hmm.
mean, and the main reason why I maintain that is because of who are the ones that you see championing that cause. You're talking about people who simply want to do us harm. Now, if they want to have all the guns in the world, I want to make sure they at least not have at least one, and
Hmm.
that one will be mine. As it is, I have four. So,
Well,
so
in your line of work, it's like you said, it's understandable. You're a very public figure. Um,
yeah, I mean, but I think it's just really on a serious level. I think that there is a point to be made about the fact that the guns, the firearms are not the problem. It's the person holding it.
mm,
Guns don't kill people, people kill people. But we've had, unfortunately, a lot of tragedy that has happened over the past couple of years. So it's something that I think that we should discuss, but and how to deal with that particular issue. Unfortunately, the people that, like I said, championing the cause right now are some of the worst people in the world to champion any cause. So now, instead of dealing with dealing with gun laws responsibly, dealing with the right to keep and bear arms responsibly, we got a whole bunch of people out there saying that if you take our guns away, we're going to mount a civil war.
yeah,
And and that's not where I'm going with this. I mean, so I believe in the right to protect
mm,
myself,
yeah,
and I think that we should be able to protect ourselves by any means necessary. So, um, and I don't think the people that we hear. I think there should be more responsible voices out there that are going to champion this cause as opposed to the crackpots.
I,
And so I'm going to be one of them.
I read that in New Zealand, I guess, because of what happened, they've banned basically any weapon used in that shooting. Where do you stand on that decision?
I disagree with it.
Uh,
I disagree with it totally, but I have to take credit. I have to give them some sort of props for trying to do something, which is more than we've been doing here in
yeah,
regards to those. In regards to the shootings here, I think Trevor Notice said it best. You cannot decide. You cannot. Um, you what he said yesterday, I think it was kind of like you can't put the New Zealand situation in the same light as the a situation that we have in America, because here in America we have a political system that's broken.
interesting.
So I mean, there's a lot of variables that are going on in this country that cause a lot of the problems that we see here. New Zealand doesn't have them because they pretty much have control of their own political system. So all we got to do is just get back control of our political system. So
And also, I read with just maybe the last thing about guns is I read that you were a military police officer
yes,
at
I
one point.
was. Yes, I was. And I will preface this because I don't want anybody to start accusing me of stolen valor or anything like that. But the fact of the matter is, I didn't have the most exemplary political career, exemplary military career in the world. I mean, I was a lousy cop. I was a lousy soldier. So, and I was separated early. So
Oh, I see.
I have to be mindful. I have to be mindful of that. I do maintain my respect for the military, particularly those who could handle it better than I did, and I definitely try to support them as much as I can. I do not like stolen valor. I
Mm.
do not like it when people try to make themselves into something that they were not while they were in the military. And I should point out this too. I have family members that are in the military. I
Of
have
course.
family members that are overseas right now. So it will be betraying them. Even if I have a problem with the reasons why they are there, it's not their fault. They got a job to do. And it will be betraying them if I do not defend them, if I do not support them while they're out there. So, especially since they're doing the job a hell of a lot better than I did when I was in. So,
Uh,
so I got their back. And when I do bring it up, when I talk about myself being in the military, it was my experience. It was something that built who I am today. There was a lot of positive things that I got out of being in the military, a lot of new things, because I was 18 years old. It was on my 18th birthday that I had my first day of basic training. So there was a lot that I had never seen before that just came at me all at once. And some of that I didn't meet up to the challenge, but a lot of it I totally appreciate to this day. So I'm not really angry about my time in the military.
Well, I think that's a great point. And look, all of us are, we're all works in progress. Look where it brought you today. Like I'm interviewing you because I'm in I'm sitting in Los Angeles. I'm watching one night. It's late. I'm like, all right,
Mhm.
documentary. What is that? And then I'm like, I have to talk to this guy. And because on my show, the criteria is two criteria. One, is someone interesting? And two, does it have to do with a political show? And that's why I want to talk to you. I'm like, this guy
Mhm.
is interesting.
Thank
And
you. I appreciate
and
that.
and then just it was I just that was a great documentary. I mean, what do you have any thoughts on that movie?
it's it's the only kind of documentary that I would be in
Mm,
because I have spent 30 years watching documentaries about white supremacists in the past, and somehow we would not be in it, or if we were in it, we were just part of the B-roll. I made this point in interviews in the past how you would have the neo Nazis and such being interviewed by various news outlets, and they're out there expressing their views and what it is they believe. They follow them around in their house and whatever, and then along comes one of us from the ADL, so the Poverty Law Center, or any other organization, and they're basically just um, say a cosign saying that yeah, that's what they're doing, and it's a mess out there, and we're doing our best to fight it, and left it at that. I think the only time I could have ever be in a because anti-racist action, anti-fight in general, um, we've always had and anti-racist action, by the way, was an organization from back in the day that used to fight these individuals. And our attitude had always been we were getting short shrift on the in the media, and we didn't want to have anything to do with the media if they were going to do something like that. My attitude had always been, we got to we got to start talking. We got to start letting people know what is going on. We got to be out there, so when people ask questions, we can answer them. And that's what this documentary did, and it showed everything about us as opposed to just about them.
mm.
You couldn't. I mean, you're getting a warped picture if you do anything otherwise. So I'm really appreciative of how the documentary came out, and I really love how it came out.
Well, as someone noted, you're the one who came off as interesting, and it was Richard Spencer who came off as, in the review of the opinion of one writer, as almost just, I mean, of course, dangerous, but it was, I don't know it was just the filmmaker's choice, but they really, yeah, I mean, you were just a lot more interesting, and that, for someone who's tuning in, that's a valuable thing, I think.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this right now in regards to how he looked. They didn't use special effects. I mean, Richard Spencer, Richard Spencer came off the way he made himself come off. So
Yeah.
it's his fault if he doesn't like the way it looks.
When I've been watching that, and I watched a little bit before I did this, again, like I strongly emphasize this, while there's absolutely nothing funny about these people, I'm a comedy writer by trade. I mean, I'm watching these guys like Jared Taylor and Richard Spencer, and I'm like, a part of me does laugh. I'm like, you're a real person.
You can't find anything funny from what Jared Taylor does?
No, that's what I'm saying. It is funny, but
or
it's like,
Spencer does?
Yeah.
I mean, it might be a morbid sense
Yeah.
of humor. It might be
Yeah.
some black humor here and there, but no pun intended.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can get something out of it. As a matter of fact, even in Charlottesville, up until I found out that somebody got killed, I was basically playing Happy Warrior out there.
Mhm.
I was having a ball giving it to them. And then when things got serious, when things get serious. But one of the things that One People's Project did in its early days was just take the piss out of them by ridiculing them. So yeah, we would get some jokes out of them. So don't worry, but always remember, keep it in the forefront of your mind that yes, a lot of this is in fact serious, and don't let that escape you, because they'll sneak around and do something to you if you forget.
Yeah, I'm watching Jared Taylor, and I'm like, did this guy have like a starburst stuck to the top of his mouth? Like the way white people. Like,
What?
Yeah, it was.
Well, that's Jared Taylor for you.
No, I know. The movie makes it clear. I mean, it seems like, and you correct me if I'm wrong, your tactic is to expose these people and then occasionally mock them. But then there's that other side of when things get physical. I mean, where do you stand on that? And in your opinion?
Well, it's like I said in the documentary, it's like, if it's a form of defense, yeah, of course we're going to go out there and fight. And the important thing to remember is that is all they want to do is fight you. The Proud Boys, for example, their whole mission was to is still engage in violence against their political opponents. And in the documentary, you hear Gavin McInnes, the founder of the group, say that violence is a really effective way to solve problems.
Yeah.
So that's what we're up against.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have to deal with that kind of nonsense, it is what it is. We got to handle it. So I'm not going to attack anybody for engaging them on that level. What I will say, however, is that if you're not about that, you don't have to be. You can. There are other ways to be aggressive, other ways to be effective in dealing with these characters. And my group, for example, is a perfect example of that. I mean, I am a writer by trade. I am a journalist by vocation. So I use those tools to go after them. I take the piss out of them that way as well.
Right. And self-defense is, of course, I don't think there's a person in the world who would say that, you shouldn't defend yourself when some nut is trying to hurt you.
Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, I was strapped up in Charlottesville. So it's just like, I mean, I'm sitting there looking at a whole bunch of militia guys looking like police to everybody. And I'm sitting there going, okay, if they can open carry, I can open carry. And I might have to. So.
Yeah, I don't endorse any kind of violence, but obviously self-defense is kind of another, and I'm sure you agree, another thing.
Right. And that's that's really, to be honest, the only thing that you can endorse. I mean, escalating things, if you're the one that's escalating, you're going to be called out as the one that's wrong. And Antifa, to a large extent, has been disciplined in that regard. I know a lot of people may have some questions about certain tactics that have happened over the past 2.5 years, but for the most part, Antifa has been very responsible in the way they've approached situations. And we're really good at de-escalating things too, if we have to. So, I mean, I think that what this documentary shows is that we do have the ability to handle things properly. And we, most importantly, are not the bad guys. The media might try to say that, especially the right-wing media might try to say that, but we're not. And it was really important, it was really important for this documentary to show that yes, we are disciplined, we are going to do the things the right way.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, you mentioned Gavin McInnes. Is it true that he, one day after what I read was that the FBI declared the Proud Boys a hate group, he just left?
Yes, yes, basically, and he even said in his in the video where he officially quit the group that he was doing so to make his the court cases of some of their members who got arrested in New York over a brawl that they were involved in. He was leaving to make their case a little bit easier, and it was like, okay, so you're giving away the story, man.
Because to me, what that looked like, what was hilarious, that would be like if you experienced one setback with your group and you were just like, I'm out. Like I'm watching, I'm like, I don't get it. You're this big tough guy, but the minute there was some actual consequences, which by the way is the motto of your group, he was like, no, I'm cool. I'm not this.
But yeah, but sadly, in this case, it was just him just basically saying, yo, this is a tactic. I'm still down with them, but I'm just not going to be a member. It's kind of like recently the group Identity Europa disbanded. It was right after all the a group called Unicorn Riot, a group similar to ours, had released a lot of chats from their Discord exchanges, and it revealed a lot of information about them. And Identity Europa just decided to disband, but they basically came up with a new group just as quickly, calling themselves the American Identity Movement. The American Indian Movement is not too fond of that name, mind you, but that happened a couple of weeks ago. And that's so Identity Europa is dead. Here comes American Identity Movement. And all of it is just like a chess game. Basically, they're trying to avoid all kinds of drama that has been coming the way of neo-Nazis and fascists over the past 2.5 years. It's not going to work, but hey, fun to watch them try.
I saw some, there was maybe just one short scene about in Berkeley in the documentary, and maybe as just more part of the general public who's not as knowledgeable. I mean, when I see a person dressed all in black, I'm not saying this happened in Berkeley, but just let's say engaging in a form of anarchism or throwing something into a McDonald's that it blows it up. I mean, that's not anything related to what you do. I
have never really been involved with that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get angry at people who have engaged in that thing. Let's face it, there are a lot of people who do get frustrated. There are people who get frustrated and upset because everything that they have tried to do to deal with this is not working. What do you do? I mean, we can be cordial about all of this, and this was during the Milo Yiannopoulos speech over in Berkeley, or rather, event in Berkeley, and it doesn't necessarily have to mean that you're dressing in black. It could be just straight up freaking regular people going, look, enough's enough. We got to do something. Now, going in that direction, I don't know. I mean, I would say the best people to talk to in regards to that are going to be those that engage. I don't think it would be fair for me to admonish them when, in many respects, I feel the same way they do. It is frustrating. It is frustrating. So,
but you channel it in like. You chat in like a great way. You expose these people. Like, I mean, and then again, this is just my own opinion, but when I see that, I'm like, I get being angry, but I don't agree with that. I guess that's just what I want to say. But
understood,
yeah.
Fair. And let's be fair. Yeah. A lot of those folks that dressed in black, they do it the same. They do it the same way as I do as well. A lot of them, for the most part, a lot of them who are out in those streets going buck wild, also go home or to their offices and start looking up who they're dealing with. And they start letting other people know who they're doing. One of the best groups out there right now is a group out of Portland called Rose City Antifa. They've been doing this for about 10, 15 years, and that's their mission. They want people to know who it is that are really out there causing harm. And they have been really effective in that. They expose a lot of Proud Boys and a lot of Patriot Prayer Groups members in all their efforts. And in Portland, it's worse. In Portland, it's real bad because those are the organizations that are actually trying to attack people who are they're politically opposed to. So they're up against a wall there in Portland. They got to fight back somehow.
Right. the motto of your group, the one People's Project, is hate has consequences, right?
Absolutely, yes.
And maybe just for people who are like tuning in, what could you tell people? Because I always do things out of order, which this would normally be in the front, but that's not my style. What exactly do you do?
Well, basically, what One People's Project does, and also through our newsline IDAVOX, which is at idavox.com, what we do is we monitor, research, and report on right-wing groups and individuals. Now, notice I said right-wing. It's not necessarily races that we deal with, not solely races that we deal with. We deal with folks who are anti-Muslim, anti-Jewish, anti-immigration groups. We're talking about LGBT people against LGBTQ. The really rabid right wing is who we're focused on primarily because we're concerned what we were concerned about what would happen if they were to get into any kind of real power. So we're talking about monitoring, researching, and reporting on them, and trying to encourage communities to prevent that basically diminish their ability to function, really, to keep them from growing and building. And we've been doing it for about 20 years. I've been in almost 20 years. I've been in this game for about 30. And we've been pretty successful in our efforts. We've gotten people removed from their positions of power. We've gotten them fired from their jobs. We caused a number of groups to fall apart, and disband. Also, I should point out that you have a lot of those folks that are in these kinds of hate groups that want out, and we're there for them as like an open door thing. Say, hey, look, we'll talk. We'll talk, and a couple of people have spoken to us, and we were able to get a lot of people out of the out of the white power scene. And there's actually a movie being released called Skin. That's about that. That's about one person that we helped get out.
Right. You made that very clear that if someone wants to get out, that you're willing to talk to them and to help them.
Right. We have an open door policy. I'm my father's son. My father was a counselor. I mean, I have to remember, we all do, but I have to remember that we are dealing with human beings. Now, it doesn't always work out. If they insist on being a part of this nonsense, then we have to respond accordingly. But if they are getting out, they're getting out. They're not the enemy anymore. Hopefully, they'll be able to get out and let us know who still is. But failing that, but despite that, I should say, as long as you are not going to be a threat to anybody anymore, we're good.
You talked about being these people being in positions of power. So I want to ask you something. Do you think that President Trump, a phrase I really don't like saying, do you think that
I've never said it?
I wish
Donald
I
Trump
didn't.
is his name.
Yeah. You said what?
Donald Trump is his name.
Yeah.
We'll just that.
Do you think he's a white supremacist?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with you. Just was curious where you stood on that.
I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. If a person shows you who they are, believe it.
What about this administration? Not just him, all of them. Stephen Miller. Is this?
Yes.
Yeah, all of them.
Well, Stephen Miller. Now, I have to be careful of this because Stephen Miller and Richard Spencer basically knew each other when they were both at Duke University. Richard Spencer was a PhD candidate, and Stephen Miller was an undergrad. Stephen Miller was bringing white nationalists like Peter Bremner to Duke University when he was part of the Duke Conservative Union or something like that, when he was president of that. So Stephen Miller made sure we knew who he was even while he was in college. So whatever game he's trying to play now that he's a White House advisor, we know who he is. We know who he is, and he's not fooling anyone.
It seems like that's one of the only partially told stories, is that this is everything this administration does, from this wall to whatever. This is an administration of white supremacy, and that's not. I mean, how many times have they thrown up that crazy sign in the White House? Like, they were at the podium. The what is the OK thing?
Yeah, this thing.
Yeah.
Hey, my attitude is, I mean, they try to play the game like, well, everybody uses the OK symbol. Yeah, but when you do, you've already told us what it meant.
Yeah.
So whenever you use it, we're going to respond accordingly. We're not going to sit here and play your silly game. If you want to be about that nonsense, you will be treated as if you have. So,
is your group working on anything specific now that I don't know, you wanted to let anyone know about?
Well, it's crazy because every year, I mean, right now we're helping communities deal with white supremacists as they're coming into town, and every year, Jared Taylor and has his conference in Nashville, or just outside Nashville in the park called Montgomery Bell Park State Park. And every year we try to get out there. I mean, we saw this in the documentary. This particular rally, this particular conference was where we're all in the park and we're yelling and screaming at Jared Taylor while he's holding the conference. That conference is happening in May 17th through the 19th, and the locals there are going to be out there on the 18th. And they're trying to get as many people out there as possible because what has happened, we chased Richard Spencer, sorry, no, Freudian slip. We chased Jared Taylor's conference out of Washington, D.C. This used to be a conference that was being shown on C-SPAN, but Washington, D.C. eventually started shutting their doors to him. He tried to go to Charlotte, North Carolina. They did the same thing. He ended up in Burns, Tennessee at this park, and he's been there for at least 7, 8 years. And it's frustrating to the locals down in Tennessee that they can't get rid of this guy. And what makes it even worse is that after the documentary came out last year, it used to be a case, as you saw, we was out there, it was up against the end. We was yelling and screaming at them, and we was basically having exchanges back and forth because it was a public park. It belonged to everybody, belonged to the community. But last year they fortified the park. You could not go into certain areas. You could not go into that inn. Never mind the activists. Folks who were there to enjoy the park were not allowed to. And they're doing that again this year. And what makes it even worse is that after 7, 8 years of American Renaissance showing up in the park, other hate groups have realized that this is a safe haven for them. So in June, there's another white power conference that's taking place with the League. It's a joint thing between a group called the American Freedom Party and League of the South, and Richard Spencer is speaking at that one. So the safe haven is really distressing a lot of folks in the Nashville area, in Middle Tennessee, and they really want to try to get a handle on this. And I think it's just going to be a case of other people also taking notice and helping them out. So that's what we're working on, trying to help them out.
It seems like, and by the way, it was just unintentionally humorous the way it's like at this point, Richard Spencer almost seems to have like a grudging respect for you. Are you just like, oh, that, like that to me that's a very human thing, that there is a lot of humor in that. Cause how many times have you interacted with this guy over the years?
I've interacted with him quite a few times. Yeah. Since 2011, we've been following him since 2006. But like I said in the documentary, after that initial meeting, it just went downhill, obviously, because the fact of the matter is it wasn't going to be cordial all the time. And hell, the last time I spoke to him was a few years ago, and the last words I said to him was "Eat this, bitch." So
that didn't make it into the documentary.
Yeah, no, that was after the documentary, but it's definitely on YouTube. So, but we've had our exchanges. I've had my exchanges with a number of people that were in the documentary and beyond. I don't like dealing with these characters from afar. I think it is a case where you have to basically get in their face, not just for their benefit. As a matter of fact, not for their benefit at all, but for the benefit of folks around them. They need to hear from us directly just what the problem is and why they might be the problem.
So your tactics or your organization has kind of to me it's like a dual thing. There's the sleuthing to find out who this person is and then there's like, I'm actually here physically in your face.
Yeah, lobbing bombs from behind a wall is just one, cowardly. Although I do understand why some people can't do it, but also not always effective. Not always effective. I think that it is really important. It's just like what they say about lotto. You got to be in it to win it.
Right.
And it is a case where people have to see that there are folks that are going to engage right then and there. And it definitely sends a message to all of us that how serious this is.
Yeah, see, I'm a podcaster, so this is a comfortable distance. But of course, no, but I go to my share of
You can
protests.
podcast on the scene. You can podcast on location.
Yeah. Actually, it was funny. One of the I was at this one march for. It was just a rally to protect Mueller, and I was just standing there, and then this definitely like some super anarchist group. I mean, it was almost like they were in costume. They were like, this guy's trying to recruit me. I'm trying to get away from him because I don't want to be in a photo with this guy and the FBI van that's probably down the street. I'm like, nah, I'm cool, bro.
Let me tell you something. Nothing wrong with being in the photo with anarchists, except for the fact that anarchists really don't like their picture taken. So
I was like, no, I'm cool. I got my thing. And then I just saw this.
Anarchists, did they have black capes?
He was trying to tell me stuff. I'm like, no, this is a Mueller rally. Like I'm Mueller time. Like I need to be doing my thing. And he's like, no, you need to. And then I saw this girl I barely know, and I was like, hey, remember me? And I just booked it.
I mean, like I said, man, everybody, there's a diversity of tactics when you get out there in the field. Everybody has their way of dealing with things. So long as we're all marching towards the same goal of keeping these characters down significantly, I'm happy. But if we're dealing with folks who and this is a problem for some folks. If we're dealing with folks who are not going to be effective or productive in any size, shape, or form, it's just really a case of just having to talk to them. Now, when I say that, I mean folks who are just in it for the sake of looking pretty. There is a lot of posturing in the political scene. I'm not necessarily talking about activists. I do not want to work with people who want to just stir up things for the sake of getting themselves in front of a camera, that kind of thing. Yeah. So I would just simply say you might disagree with the anarchists, or the anarchists might disagree with you, but as long as y'all can talk and figure out how to go forward, then it's all going to work out just fine. So
I did want to ask you about Charlottesville, because I think when the sordid history of this, whatever this has been the last 4 years, is written, that it's going to stand out as the night. I mean, you've been going to these things for years. That is the biggest like neo-Nazi white supremacist rally ever, right? Or event.
Yeah, in this country, I would definitely have to say that, definitely. And the reason why I'm hesitant to say that, because I have seen some pretty big rallies in the past. I always speak about a parallel to Charlottesville that happened on January 12th, 2002. And it was in York, Pennsylvania. Kind of like the same scenario in which we had white supremacists come into town, in this case to defend the mayor who was arrested for his participation in a race riot maybe 20 years before. The white supremacist in question, Matt Hale, and his group World Church of the Creator, now known as Creativity Movement, they rented out, or rather booked a public room in the library, and everybody, just like we saw in Charlottesville, everybody came out for it. Not everybody got into the library, so there were some folks out in the street. And what you saw in Charlottesville is what we saw in York, up to and including a neo-Nazi driving into a crowd of people. No one was killed, and the gentleman in question ended up going to jail for about 2 years. But that was the hottest thing. It was called the Battle. We still do call it the Battle of York. And just like what we saw in Charlottesville, after York, a lot of the hate groups that we had saw there started seeing the decline. Matt Hale ended up going to jail for conspiring to kill a federal judge, and he's sitting in jail for the next 40 years. His group is basically irrelevant. Other groups like National Alliance and Aryan Nations that was there are basically dead letter these days. And we see the same thing happening in Charlottesville. We see the same thing happening to the hate groups that were going on in Charlottesville. That's why they're changing their names. That's why they're not holding the public rallies as much as they did. It's just basically one of the things that frustrates me the most, because it's a cycle. We keep on seeing the cycle, and it's just a matter of breaking that damn wheel so the cycle stops, and that's just up to us.
Charlottesville, I mean, it was like you were there, so you correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like for one night in this major American city, it was like anarchy, like just every man for himself while these Nazis just run. I mean, is that what it was?
Well, speaking as an anarchist, no, it was not anarchy.
My apologies.
Um, it was insane. It was insane. And like I said, I was there and I was basically playing the role of the happy warrior out there. But the truth of the matter is, when things got real hot um, and real serious, I mean, it was serious, but
Sure.
I didn't realize just how hardcore it gotten until I started hearing that everybody was watching it live, because that didn't
Wow.
happen. When I heard that CNN was covering it live and MSNBC was covering it live, we were like, the whole world is watching. And then we started hearing about, everybody was talking about that people were shooting, and I was in an area where we was just like, they're saying that people are shooting and stuff. No, that's not happening around here. Turns out, yeah, somebody was firing some rounds, and he's sitting in jail for the next 4 or 5 years. And then I remember, I everything was down. I mean, I had gotten pepper sprayed, but was recovered pretty well by this point. Went back to my car. We were all just chilling out near a church, yelling and screaming at any Nazis that were walking by, but we were too tired to get into any really heated arguments with them. We just let them do their thing. Um, I saw the ambulances drive by that went to take care of Heather Heyer. We was only a couple of blocks away from that. And we didn't know that that was the case. We just figured, oh, looks like somebody got hurt. Looked like there was some things that went down. And
Wow.
and since we started hearing about how a car drove into people, and we had a whole bunch of people getting killed. That was the initial thing. A whole bunch of people are killed, or then it became one person got killed, and it was just like, are we sure that that's what happened? I just kept on saying, they said one person died. I said, are we sure that's not just some sort of rumor? We know this for a fact. And and then I started seeing on my phone that yep, somebody got killed, and I was just like, oh brother. And it's weird too, because I'll tell you this right now. I mean, a couple of days before, me and my crew had did a small podcast in which we said that Charlottesville was going to be the so-called alt-right's Altamont, and sure enough, that's exactly what it
Wow.
was.
Yeah, minus the what is the security guards from that biker gang, but pretty much the
Now,
same thing.
pretty much the same thing. We lost lives in Altamont, and we lost lives in Charlottesville. But there were 3 lives that were lost in Charlottesville. The other 2 were police officers in that helicopter. But it was just like it. I think everybody was worn out by that point. Once we heard that somebody died, I mean, we were done to begin with. But once we heard that, it was just like, now what? And all of a sudden, a lot of people who didn't go to Charlottesville initially started driving down, saying, "Okay, they need help."
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the police response has stood out to me, and it was absolutely a tragedy. I'm sure that would happen to those 2 officers, but the command response. I mean, what the hell was that? They just didn't do any. They just. How
You
did
know
that happen?
what? I bring up York a lot. That's another part of the parallel. They did the same thing in York. They first, in York, they first kept the 2 groups apart, and then for some reason they just stopped, and then all hell broke loose. Charlottesville, they didn't even try. You know, it's what angers me most of all is the fact that they had some sort of plan where they was going to keep all the Nazis away from that park and put them in another park, but they sued and won the right to be in that park, and they couldn't manage it. They just said, okay, fine, just let things happen as they do, and they're going to pay for it. They paid for it, and I think they're going to pay for it for a very long time. But I think the biggest biggest takeaway from that is that you can't let the Nazis just get carte blanche just because.
Right.
And whether or not you want to defend their freedom of speech, okay, fine, you can do that. But you also have to protect yourself. If you don't protect yourself, giving people who want to take away your freedom of speech and your freedoms, their freedoms, giving them their freedoms, makes the whole thing worthless. The whole thing worthless.
Right. I think, I mean, Charlottesville is, it may be the best example of self-defense. And like, again, like as a person who is conflicted about some of this stuff, when you're standing there and a guy's running at you and there's a police officer who's just, I guess, just chilling. I mean, what do you have to defend yourself?
Yeah. I mean, I talked earlier about the whole thing about the guy that fired popped off some rounds. I was like, the police were standing there. He didn't get tackled. We had to wait until first the ACLU released that video, and then a couple of weeks later for him to get arrested. Really? And we had, and this is one of the things that really drives me crazy. It took the efforts of people around the country to identify the folks that attacked DeAndre Harris. It was as if the police was just basically saying you're on your own even after Charlottesville. It was as if they weren't even trying to investigate who was responsible for this. It took people to say, look, here's some video. Here's all the people that were involved with it. What are you going to do about it? No one would be in jail today if it wasn't for people out there saying, would you do something?
Yeah, it was really funny to see the all these guys, like the crying Nazi and all that. Like it's all a big, like with a lot of fake tough guys like our president. It's all a big thing till all of a sudden the spotlight's on you, and then it's not so funny anymore, I guess.
No, and it's funny with Chris Cantwell, the crying Nazi, as you refer to him as, because he just got kicked off a Gab because after Christchurch in New Zealand, he started saying that he put out a post saying instead of going after innocent people who may not have anything to do with anything, why don't you just go after our political enemies and mass shoot them? I mean, and this is the way he talks on a regular basis on social media. He always encourages people to go out and kill folks and be more violent and all this. He reminds me of somebody from a couple of years ago who did it just for likes and clicks. So I'm sitting there listening to him and going, okay, you Mr. Tough Guy, I noticed that you're not saying that you want to do this. So because when you tried it, we got pictures of you crying.
Well, he reminds me of our president.
I'm not encouraging him to do so, but by the same token, come on, man. Stop trying to be tough guy when we know you're not one.
To me, that's Trump. And hey, I'll pay your bills. Kick, all that stuff. It's like the same guy. One's just wearing a suit.
It's weird with Trump, however, because when you talk about him, I think he's just showboating for the sake of showboating. I don't even think I don't think, as a matter of fact, we know he's not really taking the presidency seriously. I think the reason why he supports white supremacy the way he does is because, yeah, he does believe in all of that, but he also recognizes them as the vehicle he came into the White House in. So he's not going to attack them. He is going to try to deflect and blame Antifa or Black Lives Matter for whatever it is they do. And he's going to continue to placate to them or pander to them for as long as he's where he is today. And I think we need to realize that in the end, it's really not about him. It's really about us. In fact, the documentary originally was supposed to be about Trump's first year. If you notice, the documentary did not have a lot of Trump in it.
True.
There was some here and there. I mean, he is some sort of a backdrop. He is there. But the truth of the matter is, they was already done with the documentary by July of 2017. But I asked the producers, look, if you want to get more footage, I really do suggest you come out to Charlottesville. Because we were planning on going out to Charlottesville. And when Charlottesville happened, and they were there and videotaped all of it, that changed the entire scope of the documentary. That's why it is what it is today.
I want to ask you, how is this you've been doing this a long time. How has this administration opened the door? Like, have you seen, as is mostly agreed upon by the journalists,
Mhm.
a real rise in hate because of this election?
Not so much a rise as I see a bunch of neo Nazis that we've been dealing with for a long time taking the opportunity to really try to get something out of the opportunity that Trump is giving them. Um, I don't see the rise. I know there's always people talking about how there's a rise, but when they rise, we rise. And us rising has been their downfall. We don't want this in our society. So when it props up, we try as much as we can to take it down. After Charlottesville, what did we do? We started disowning them from our families. That happened to one of them. They were getting fired from their jobs, including whether you're talking about working at Northrop Grumman or at Hot Dog Johnny's. So, you know, everybody, they were feeling the pain. Some
It,
people even left the groups because that's not what they signed up for.
it always really
So,
makes me laugh. Oh, I'm sorry. What were you saying?
no, that's it.
The whole like I'm Jewish. The whole thing about like you will not replace us, and like the guy got fired who was working at like the sandwich shop, and I was like, yeah, I'm good. Like I don't want to. I'm cool with that. Like we've done pretty well in America overall. I don't need to work at the. I don't need to work in the sandwich shop, but thank you for your
Yeah,
concern.
take that. Unfortunately, I may have to leave you soon because everybody's
Oh
hitting me
yeah,
up now.
no, of course. Let me just ask you that in that case one more question.
Yeah.
What can like the ordinary person do to fight hate?
The ordinary person, and we're all ordinary in our own special way, but
Yeah.
but I think the ordinary people basically just support the folks that are out there trying to fight this. We're not, I mean, just take in the information that we're putting out there because in the end, it's not about just Antifa versus the alt-right kind of nonsense. It's about the alt-right and everybody neo-fascists versus all of us. All of us are going to be hurt if they get over, if they win. So basically take in what it is that's going on out there and do what's right with it. And most importantly, support those that are out there trying to fight this. I'm not just talking about myself or One People's Project. I'm talking about anybody out there that's putting that work in. So I mean, that's really all anybody has. Just help us out and be a part of it if you can.
Well, Daryle, I really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man, so I just want to again, thank you for talking to the podcast, and I hope we can do this again sometime.